Good evening, I'm Katerina Georgieva. Here's what's making news right now.
We cannot support reinstating a mask mandate. Students trust the science, believe in protecting one another, and understand the severity of the pandemic. However, with all due respect to trustees, Student Trustee Hawkins and I urge you to consider students' opinions.
The people that are coming from Ukraine need all of the help they can get. The war in Ukraine is absolutely horrific.
I was looking at my bookshelves and I saw all these books in various spots about writing or how to write, and I thought to myself, well, when am I going to finally decide how to do this? And one day I gave myself permission to go for it.
Thanks for joining us. The local public school board wants the province to reconsider putting mask mandates and capacity limits in place, but it's not a unanimous decision. CBC's Chris Ensing reports.
This school here is Central Public School, and today the province says that 20% of students and staff are absent. That's double what there were last year on this day, according to the school board. It's one of the highest rates of absenteeism in the public school system, all coming during our sixth wave. Last week, the region's medical officer of health said that school boards should put in their own mask mandates.
We are concerned about absenteeism in schools. We're also concerned about absenteeism among hospital staff as well.
The board met last night to talk it out. Student trustees were clear they don't want masks back.
Students deserve the right to make this decision on their own. And in this time of near constant uncertainty, enabling students to have a choice equips them to be better leaders of tomorrow.
Neither does Trustee Alan Halberstadt, reading a letter about masks affecting students' mental health.
The masking mandate to go back on, I think, would be very destructive to them.
Mental health also a sticking point for another trustee who wants restrictions reconsidered.
I feel sympathy, but I want them to think about those students who stay at home and are scared to come out to school. They are still doing online, and they also have, the mental issues.
The motion passed 7-4, but not to put a mask mandate in place.
The minister has been clear. Boards cannot implement or enforce a mask mandate at the school board level.
So instead, they'll send a letter addressed to the Minister of Education, the province's medical officer of health, and the region's medical officer of health, asking them to reconsider implementing restrictions based on the spread of COVID-19. Now, as that meeting was happening in Windsor, there was one going on in London, the largest school board there deciding that they will tell students masks are required, but their lawyer says it's not something that they can enforce. Meanwhile, back here in Windsor, Essex, the Catholic board says that they will not be revisiting any of these masking decisions, saying that absenteeism is starting to drop and that they will continue to monitor things on a daily basis. Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
And we put the board's call for reconsideration to the province, and it sent us back a statement from Education Minister Stephen Lecce. He says students will continue to have a choice to wear a mask, that it's a policy recommended by the Chief Medical Officer of Health. We asked the local health unit if it can put a mask mandate in place at the school level, but it did not answer that question, instead saying health measures for schools should be instituted by the province. Ontario's election campaign officially kicks off 2 weeks from today. But in this pre-campaign period, the Ford government is already rolling out a lot of promises. Queen's Park reporter Mike Crawley has added up the cost, and it is well into the billions.
It's a familiar sight over the past few weeks as the clock ticks down on the Ford government's term. Government announcements coming at a furious pace.
We will be investing over $1 billion in a number of significant projects.
Over $1 billion to redevelop and expand Unity Health Toronto's St. Joseph Health Centre.
800 long-term care spaces.
The largest expansion in more than 10 years.
The pre-campaign flurry began with news that the government would refund 2 years' worth of vehicle registration fees. Checks arriving at voters' homes this month total $1.1 billion. There's also a promised cut to the fuel tax. It doesn't kick in until July, but will cost the Treasury $650 million.
Putting money back into people's pockets.
Throw in a couple $1 billion announcements of hospital construction in Toronto. Another $900 million to automakers to help them transition to electric vehicles, and $750 million in job retention bonuses for nurses. The tally starts adding up.
With each passing week, it's a new gimmick, it's a new trick, it's a new maneuver to try and convince the people of Ontario that somehow the real Doug Ford and the real Ford Conservatives, who we've watched, all of us have seen in action over the past 4 years, that suddenly they have a different plan.
Figures compiled by CBC News put the total cost of government announcements in just the past 2 months at nearly $12 billion, nearly all of it to be spent after the election. The Premier defends the timing of all these announcements.
So we've been working from the day we got elected. We're going to continue to work.
This is something that we have promised the people of Ontario for a very long time. We're making these announcements because it's time.
You can expect still more spending promises from the government when it tables the budget next Thursday. Now, there won't be enough time for that budget to pass before the campaign begins, so that means it will only become a reality if Doug Ford and the PCs get re-elected. Mike Crawley, CBC News, Toronto.
And all you need to know about the election locally is just a click away. To help you stay informed, CBC Windsor is keeping on top of each local riding with details on who has already announced that they'll run for that June 2nd vote. And the article is loaded with information, and you can find it by going to cbc.ca/Windsor. Let's turn now to the latest on COVID-19 in our region. The number of lives lost continues to mount in Windsor, Essex. The death toll has now surpassed 600, climbing up to 604 deaths as of today. And that includes 6 new deaths that were reported this morning. These latest deaths include people ranging in age from their 50s to their 90s. None of those who died were residents of a long-term care or retirement home. Drug manufacturer Moderna says a new version of its vaccine shows promising signs of offering better protection against COVID-19 variants. New research suggests it could specifically target each strain of the virus like Omicron and Delta. Christine Birak has the details.
Moderna says if all goes to plan, a new version of its COVID vaccine could soon protect people against a wide range of variants.
Not only against Wuhan and Beta, which are included in the vaccine, but also against Omicron and Delta.
It's called a bivalent vaccine. Researchers mixed Moderna's existing shot with one targeting the Beta variant. In a press release, the company says its bivalent booster offered neutralizing antibodies against all variants of concern, including Omicron, and was maintained for 6 months.
So this is really important because it shows us that a multivalent vaccine can induce higher antibody response, even when the additional variant of concern is not included in the vaccines.
Moderna's data is the first of its kind, but this study hasn't been reviewed by outside scientists yet. Researchers note the bivalent booster was only given to 300 people, and unlike a clinical trial, the work was all done in a lab.
What it doesn't tell us is real-world efficacy. Although the data look very, very promising that it's inducing strong antibody responses.
We need to sort of fill up our quiver with more kind of strategies against these variants.
Protection from current vaccines is still holding up against hospitalizations and severe disease, but infections are now widespread.
We knew we couldn't go on with the original strains forever.
Doctors say new tools are welcome, but staying ahead of new variants is tricky.
It's almost like buying a new computer. Every time you go to buy one, there's a new model which makes the one you just bought obsolete.
Moderna is already studying another bivalent booster that mixes the original virus with Omicron. The company says it's hoping to offer an Omicron-based booster as early as this fall. But doctors say, don't wait for it. If you're offered another shot, take it. Christine Birak, CBC News, Toronto.
As the second phase of the Russian invasion of Ukraine intensifies, the fighting is coming to new cities. Ukrainian officials say the eastern city of Sloviansk is now being targeted by Russian forces. Ukrainian defenders are digging in along a battlefront that stretches along the Donbass region, from Kharkiv in the north to Mariupol in the south. The thumping is the sound of Ukrainian troops returning mortar fire. Russian state television is airing video that it claims shows a steel mill in Mariupol where Ukrainian forces and civilians are holding out. It's believed they are inside a maze of tunnels and basement rooms underneath the sprawling complex. Russian forces are demanding the unconditional surrender of Ukrainian troops. And the Russian Defense Ministry is reported to have test-fired a new intercontinental ballistic missile. President Vladimir Putin says the weapon is unique and will make those who threaten Russia, quote, think twice. Now, as the war continues in Ukraine, a group of local parishioners are coming together to help those who have been displaced settle in Windsor, Essex. CBC's Jennifer LaGrassa joined the group during a meeting where they planned their next steps.
At a moment's notice, Lasha Dudard could get a message telling her the Ukrainian couple she is sponsoring will soon arrive at her doorstep.
I had the need to help, and I have a room, and they have nothing. They are literally coming with what they can carry.
But Dudard admits she knows little about the supports the family will need. That's what led We Son, Windsor, Essex, supporting Ukrainian newcomers, to form. Late into the evening at Saints Vladimir and Olga Ukrainian Catholic Church in South Windsor, this growing group of community members meet up to find the right resources for new arrivals and plan for anticipated ones.
When they get here, they need virtually everything. We're not sure that we're going to be able to provide virtually everything, but we want to be able to help the people find where they can go in order to get everything they need.
This includes translators, housing, a SIN number, and basic necessities like clothing. The group hopes to be the first touch point for newcomers so that it can direct them to the right community resources.
It's helping them navigate the waters because, you know, they've experienced trauma. They've lived through absolute hell. So to provide them a safe space here in Windsor is of utmost importance.
Those who came to last night's meeting were drawn there for different reasons, but they all had the same purpose: to better welcome Ukrainians coming into Windsor, Essex.
I came to Canada too. I was an immigrant, same as them, and I understand the struggle. I am where I am today thanks to the people in Windsor, Essex.
My wife and I are looking to sponsor a family. She hid my passport, so she won't let me go over to Ukraine to fight. So I can't go. So how can I do it locally or help out locally? Is if, you know, with all these people that are fleeing that country.
The group has raised close to $5,000 so far. It plans to have a website up in the coming weeks. As for Dudard, she's doing all that she can to prepare to open her home.
I can help, so I'm going to help.
Jennifer LaGrassa, CBC News, Windsor.
Those of you who tuned in last night may remember a report by Chris Ensing looking at the Youth Diversion Group. The organization steers young people towards positive life choices, and Windsor police are leaning on them to help curb youth crime. Referrals to youth diversion are skyrocketing. A technical glitch last night forced us to cut out of Chris's story halfway through, but it's a story that we really want you to see. So here's Chris's report in its entirety.
The Youth Diversion Group has worked with police for decades, but that relationship now a priority.
Well, it's about tackling the problem of youth crime upstream, getting to it before it becomes an adult crime, right?
Frontline officers can refer teens or kids to the Youth Diversion Group instead of a criminal charge. In 2019, police saw 143 calls involving youth, more than half charged criminally, a quarter referred to youth diversion. Similar numbers in 2021. In 2020, a dip described as an outlier because of lockdowns caused by the pandemic. A referral to youth diversion puts kids in programs that hold them accountable and helps build up positive decision-making skills.
Because if we want a young person to stop, engaging in a certain activity, you can't just, scare them away from engaging in that. You have to look at what is contributing to them behaving in that way. What pressures are going on in their life?
She says referrals are skyrocketing.
There's some days where we have 3 or 4 referrals a day coming through, and we are truly inundated when it comes to the number of youth that we're seeing, and then of course, some of the complexities that are associated with what's going on.
Those referrals come from police, schools, or parents, and the kids don't have to be involved in the court system. She says while each case is unique, a common theme continues to be the outsized influence that online platforms have on impressionable minds.
We can't be oblivious to the fact that our kids are living in a world that is very different from the one you and I grew up in. The world that we had was without the digital influences that the kids are currently exposed to.
Her suggestions for all parents: try to have open communication with their kids, ask who they're talking to and what they're talking about. She says early intervention might help ease the online influence and help them understand the real consequences that they might face for poor decisions that anyone can make at a young age. Police will now track and report referrals quarterly at public board meetings, saying interventions generally prevent repeat offenses.
But really what we want is some meaningful interruption of someone going in a bad direction.
Chris Ensing, CBC News, Windsor.
2 writers from Windsor, Essex have made it onto this year's CBC Short Story Prize long list. That means they're in the running for $6,000 and a chance to be published on CBC Books. And the first of our local writers is up for her short story submission, Break, Little Girl, Little Mother. It showcases a Nigerian-Canadian woman's personal journey to putting herself first.
I hadn't used an electric razor in years. The tool felt foreign in my hands, but when I began, it jerked alive with inanimate agency. Muscle memory shifted the clipper guards from number 000 to number 6. Tapered from the bottom up, pushed aside stray hairs. I stepped back. A perfect high top fade, just like the Fresh Prince. Being a Nigerian Canadian, I think there's this desire to just want to see more of our stories and our cultural practices and just the ways that we've been treated by Canadian society and the ways that we've grown up and seen the world, and how that deserves to be talked about too, I think. And so that's really important to me when I'm writing.
Our other local contender from Essex County, her story, Dinner with Friends, follows a Chinese-Canadian woman as she navigates her day-to-day life experiences with subtle racism. She says there's been a real emergence of Asian writers in the past 2 decades that has inspired her to write.
There had been an elaborate spread of food on the butcher block counter. Mallory always included a small bowl of pickled beets and a plate of her mother's pierogi, along with a homemade chocolate strudel, her grandmother's recipe. My contribution was always a bottle of champagne. After that night, I discovered Rachel had used the photo I took of her as her profile pic, bragging it was an Eileen Z original. I tried not to let it bother me, the same way I tried to forget when she teased me that I was their own little Yoko Ono. I think the things that happen in that story, those little microaggressions, the childhood bullying, yes, those are inspired by things that have happened to me. And I think that's what happened when those terms, Asian flu and China virus, came out. It made me remember. It caused me to recall all those times in my life where I've bumped up against racial tension.
Love learning about the talented people who live in our region. And the winner of the 2022 CBC Short Story Prize will be announced next Thursday on April 28th. Live look outside. We had lots of sun today, but now it's getting cloudy. I mean, it's indicating those rain clouds, they're on the way tonight and tomorrow. Colette will be here after the break with more details. Stay with us.
Ford.
Colette Kennedy is here now for a look at our weather forecast. Colette, it was beautiful outside for a little bit, but it's starting to shift already.
Yeah, it was such a cool start this morning, -3, so in those negatives, took some time to get going, then a really nice into the afternoon hours. But yeah, this is just ahead of this next system that's going to be moving through and bringing some rain showers to us. Still kind of just holding on to those double digits, Windsor and for Sarnia as well. As we get the winds kind of kicking up off the lake, though, we'll have some cooler readings that we'll see at times, especially nearer to the lakeshore. So what you have here are some light showers, kind of spotty in nature, associated with the clouds that Katarina's talking about, coming in for the evening hours, so a few hours of that. Then there's really going to be a break because this is out ahead of the main system. The more significant rain and more organized is still going to be back to the west. That comes in the overnight hours. Be thinking kind of in terms of timing around 3 a.m. or so that we'll get into a little bit more consistent rainfall here. In fact, I've stopped it for you at 3. A little bit heavier at times, especially up towards Sarnia. And then as that comes through, 8 a.m., we're really getting towards the back edge of it. Not the case, of course, London, Chatham, Kent. You'll have a little more time before it clears you. But once the rain moves out, clouds linger a little bit, but then even by lunchtime, those are clearing away and the sun coming back. So it's one of those kind of split decision days in terms of the forecast. Wet early, wet morning commute, and then really improving into the afternoon and getting those temperatures kind of bumping up as well. Now for Friday, most of the day is going to be a good one too. Then the next system will come in Friday evening and have an impact into our weekend. Just showing you some of those forecast wind gusts. As we get towards Thursday in the morning, it'll be a little windy, and then they kind of back off in the afternoon. Those temperatures tonight, what a contrast, right? From what we had this morning. We're talking about 10 degrees or more in terms of the difference. Now here we go into Thursday, that high up to 19, especially because we will get that sun in the afternoon, breezy early, and then we're going to see kind of that increase in cloudiness on Friday. Temperatures closer to seasonal, but you see what's happening into the weekend. Yeah, we're going to have a chance for rain off and on in there, but boy, look at how those numbers, Katarina, are going to be spiking up there into the 20s.
Yeah, no kidding. Thanks so much for that, Colette.
You're welcome.
When we come back, Netflix is losing subscribers. We're going to bring you that story right after the break. Netflix has revealed it lost 200,000 subscribers in the first 3 months of this year, the first decline in more than a decade. The announcement triggered a sharp plunge in share prices. As Thomas Dagler reports, the company is blaming a combination of factors.
Movie buffs used to complain about the price of cinema tickets. Now it's the ever-rising cost of a Netflix subscription.
They need to make money somehow, but I'm not happy about it. I think it's just a lot, and it's a big jump.
With stiff competition from the likes of Amazon, Disney, and Apple, the company that pioneered streaming is now stumbling, with Netflix reporting a loss of 640,000 subscribers in the U.S. and Canada just this year.
It's something that I think was inevitable because they had the market to themselves for so long.
As inflation pushes up the cost of virtually everything, Netflix has raised its premium plan past $20 a month. It's now mulling a lower price solution that was once unthinkable. Netflix, but with commercials.
Those who have followed Netflix know that I've been against the complexity of advertising and a big fan of the simplicity of subscription.
At the company's headquarters, they're also considering how to crack down on password sharing. Everyone does it, but Netflix doesn't love it. So soon it will come with a catch.
We're not trying to shut down that sharing, but we're going to ask you to pay a bit more.
Netflix also lost 700,000 subscribers when it pulled out of Russia over its invasion of Ukraine.
Hey, buddy.
But make no mistake, Netflix remains a behemoth with nearly 75 million subscribers just in the US and Canada, scoring a slew of Oscar nominations for original films and still delivering hit series like Inventing Anna, Ozark, and Bridgerton. But as the pandemic no longer keeps people stuck at home,
it raises questions about the ultimate end game for, Netflix, of course, and of course for all of streamers.
By this summer, Netflix says another 2 million subscribers worldwide are expected to hit exit. Thomas Dagler, CBC News, Toronto.
That is it for CBC Windsor News. Thank you so much for watching. Have a good night.